Welcome into the... Oh, God.
You want me to do it?
Would that be weird? Yeah, you do it, dude. You're so natural at it.
Welcome to the Well-ish Podcast, sponsored by Iowa Specialty Hospital, where real life meets better health. We're your hosts. I'm Derek.
I'm Anthony.
Let's dive in. All right. Hey, well, welcome back into the Well-ish Podcast. Another episode for you here. Anthony and I, once again, we're your hosts still.
Yes, sir.
But it's going to be kind of a fun one today. Anthony's going to put on, or I would say not put on, keep the hat on of interviewer, and I'm going to go ahead and switch hats and become the interviewee. And so I don't want to, direct this podcast in any way before we get started, kind of jumping into the conversation. But yeah, I'm excited to kind of hear what questions you have about what I do on a day-to-day basis. And because sometimes as we've sat here and done this, I forget that I'm one of those providers too, right? I'm a nutrition provider here with Iowa Specialty, and so I think that's something that I've kind of when we come into this room and sit down to talk, it's like we've always done the interviewing, and it's like, oh yeah, patients can work with me too. So I'm excited to hopefully help people get to know me a little bit better and in a different way than maybe when I'm doing the interviewing. So
Yeah. Welcome to the interrogation room.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Honestly, so we switched a few angles here, and as I look at you, it just really feels kind of like lighting just looks great on you right now, man.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm excited for this. Hopefully, the listeners are excited too to get to know you a little bit better. And clearly, as if you are a regular listener here, you know that we interview in different styles, right? Which is honestly like fantastic because I think we build off each other really well. So bear with me. This is not going to be the dynamic duo that we're used to, but I'm excited to dig down into more about you, what you do, and how you practice, and let's get to it.
Cool, man.
All right. So Derek Groathouse, registered dietitian, master's in what is the PP?
Professional practice.
Professional practice, but essentially master's in like nutrition and nutrition sciences, and how to practice within that field. You also have your CPT, so you're a certified personal trainer.
Yep.
And I'll let you tell more about yourself. So I guess I don't need to rattle it all off. I know you better than most of the guests you've had on here.
Yeah, that's true.
So let's start from the beginning, whatever that means for you. Take us back to kind of what's led you to the point of becoming a registered dietitian.
Oh, sure. Okay. So I feel like a lot of people in the field of nutrition specifically find their way back to it after kind of going a little bit of a different direction, and I'm no exception to that rule. Not that it's a rule, but I have always been interested in food. And I think that to me is like the beginning of all of it. Growing up, I was always someone who was going to watch the cooking show, right? That was always very interesting to me. And so my dad always thought that I was going to be a chef. That was always what his thought was, just because I was like this kid who enjoyed watching cooking shows, and he's like, that's kind of interesting and new, so maybe that's the path he's going to take. And so it wasn't ever really something I considered. I wasn't like in the food industry at all. But long story short, always been interested in food. And sports were kind of also a part of things that I enjoyed doing. And so that intersection of food and athletics, right, that's always been interesting to me. It's not something that I really started thinking a lot about until I went to school. I went to Nebraska, was my first degree. That's where I went, and I got a degree in nutrition, exercise, and health science. So I was kind of walking on the path right away. But I always thought that I was going to coach. I was going to coach football. I thought that was going to be super fun and interesting, and it's all of those things. But after doing it I was a coach at Waukee High School for a couple of years for the varsity team right after I graduated college, and it was just it's a lot of time. And at this point in my life, could I probably do it now? Yeah, I could probably do it now for a varsity team, and I've thought about that. Kind of getting involved in that again. I think that would be really fun. But when I just graduated, I was 22. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with my life specifically, and coaching takes a ton of time, no matter what level you're at, especially once you get to varsity and then up, right? And I thought, I'll coach college football, and the time of that was going to be a lot. And I have a variety of interests, and that was going to be too much. So I was like trying to figure out like what's my next step, because just doing this is not a career path. I was substitute teaching too at the time. So I've kind of taken this winding road, right? And then when the pandemic hit in 2020, it was a good opportunity for me to reflect and kind of figure out how I wanted to move forward. And so decided to go back to school. And that's where I went to Iowa State University, went back, got another degree in dietetics specifically, and then went on to earn that master's, and now here we are. So
now here we are. So once you got your master's, actually, before we got your master's, what were you doing as your full-time job? Or like, so you said you were a student or substitute teaching and coaching at Waukee. Was there anything else in there, or was that it for that time frame?
That was it. I was subbing every day.
Okay.
So like that was what I was doing. It was it wasn't a career move at that point, right? I thought maybe coaching was the career move. Became not. And so I was able to, I think that time substitute teaching was super valuable for me, because I was like walking into an unknown situation every single day, and being who I am, and I felt like when I was a young guy, like I could get the kids to actually do things, which I think is sometimes a challenge for other substitute teachers. But so I was teaching every day. I was teaching something new. I was having to crash course in the topic before I went in, and then we would go for it. And so that was a wild way to kind of do each day. I was like, all right, we're going to teach a brand new topic. Sometimes it was, I remember a week that I was teaching AP biology, right? Having gone to school for 4 years in college, learning about the human body and nutrition and exercise and how it all, I could teach it, right? I could do it. I knew what I was looking at, but it was interesting. It was really interesting teaching that for a week, and then the next week I'm teaching Algebra 1, right? Like, and so I had to kind of pivot and move and adapt to all kinds of different learning styles all the time. And I was lucky enough to, it's so funny because I look back at it and part of me is like, wow, what an interesting time. And then also like, what an interesting time, right? I know it's the same words, but it feels very different, right? Where I was lucky enough to know a lot of the teachers that were bringing me in as their sub. And so they would ask me to come in and do actual teaching because they knew I could handle that. And so I went in there and we were working, right? I wasn't just giving out the test. We were taking them through, the next chapter. And that was my job. I was doing that because they were asking me to do that. And so it was a unique experience getting to teach like that.
It sounds incredibly unique. I think especially being, at the age of 22, 23 and teaching kids that are, anywhere between probably 16, 15 to 18, right? Yeah. You aren't that much older than them, right? But you kind of went in and, you are a super charismatic guy, right? So, and you've talked about how you're an intelligent person and really easy to take things and like go with it and use words in a way and like kind of not fake it till you make it, but you can go in and learn quick and adapt really easily, right? Yeah. And example A was your first job, 2 jobs out of high school or out of college. So, okay, so then COVID hits. You go back to school, you get your master's, become a registered dietitian. For the listeners, can you give us a quick idea as to what that registered dietitian internship looked like? And then what was your first, what did like careers look like before you came to Iowa Weight Loss?
Yeah. So internship it's varied on purpose. So we try and see a few different areas of where dietetics is used, where being a dietitian could be. You get in the schools, you get into food service in some way. I was at Iowa State for my very first placement, and I was in the catering area, and we also worked with the dining halls. And so it was over the summer, which slows everything down. But I got to kind of participate in a food waste project, which was interesting. I don't really think anything came of it of my research that I was doing that for those 6 weeks or 8 weeks, which it was interesting because that was the summer I got married too. So there's a lot going on that year. But those like 6 or 8 weeks that I was like collecting food waste, weighing it each day, and this was all basically food that was prepared but not served. Okay. That was the waste we were collecting. And it was interesting how much of that there was. And it's definitely informed how I think about it now, right? Because food waste is one of those topics that sometimes gets looped into how people think about how much food they eat, right? Like, well, I don't want to waste it. I want to waste it. And that experience like showed me like, no, this is a chain. Like once it gets all the way to you eating all the food on your plate has no impact on the food waste that happens, right? If you put it on your plate, it's gone. If you don't put it on your plate, that informs the next step up the chain that, hey, maybe we made too much. And then if they made too much, they don't buy as much. And if they don't buy as much, the producers don't produce as much, thus eventually reducing food waste, right? And so I thought that was an interesting glimpse into that sustainability chain that I use all the time, right? It's a huge point that I think about and talk about.
There's the micro level of food waste, and there's the macro where actual food waste is, at an unbelievable level. And I think until you do any sort of food service, whether that's in a restaurant, whether that's at a dining hall, whatever the case is, you don't understand that chain, and you don't understand the magnitude of food waste that there is, the potential that there is. So cool, that's a cool experience.
And it's funny because I feel like, when I was doing it, I didn't get the application specifically. I of course saw like, hey, reducing food waste is a good thing. Yes, of course. But I didn't think about how it would apply to my daily practice as a dietitian later. And I use it every day. So cool. It was a cool experiment. But then, so after that one, went on to the schools. That was interesting, getting to be in a school setting, thinking about grants and grant writing and how some of that funding happens. So that was interesting. And then my last rotation was in the acute setting in a hospital. And that was the longest one. That's the longest one on purpose because I want you to kind of see as many kind of different disease states as possible to help lots of different people. And that was super interesting. Honestly, I enjoyed that. Definitely not something that I think... I like knowing what's coming in my day. As long as I know what's coming, I'll work with pretty much anything, right? But when you get in the acute setting, you don't know what's coming. You don't know who's walking through the door that day and needs your help. And I also feel like it's a tough place to do education. And I clearly have chosen things in my life on purpose that I get to educate people. And I teach, and they learn. That's part of it. And in an acute setting, that's tough, right? Because number one, they're on one of their worst days of their life. And so... the things that you say tend to fly over their head. Yeah. Every once in a while, something sticks, and it's a necessary job for a dietitian, but not the one for me. So, but yeah, that's kind of where that internship was like. And then from there, once I took my exam and became a registered dietitian officially, I started in a long-term care setting is where I spent a few weeks at the beginning of my registered dietitian journey. Again, not my favorite, right? You're kind of just managing. I say just, that's not fair. You're managing the daily intake of the residents of the facilities that you're in, which, again, super important. just not the kind of job that I was looking for specifically, because there's not as much education that goes on, especially when someone's 90 years old, right?
Yeah.
They should eat some Jell-O. They should have an ice cream. Like, that's kind of how that goes. Yeah, and then I worked for in the kind of the retail space for about a year. Once again, I think it was interesting, gave me great perspective. I think that's definitely for anyone who's gone through a career and has had a variety of jobs, right? Just try and learn something from it. And I feel like I've learned a lot from my variety of jobs that I've had. And, once I got through, was in that retail for a year landed here at Iowa Specialty. And this is definitely what I was looking for, right? Getting to work with patients. We're talking about, I'm educating people. I get to work with them long term, the support of a whole team. If I'm not the right person to be having good conversations about different health and wellness topics, I don't have to. I can just say, hey, you know what? That's not really my area. You'll have that conversation with fill in the blank. And so it's awesome to be able to lean on all of that and the different bits of the team we have here.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, you really have had a lot of different experiences that have clearly, led to, or at least assisted you to getting to where you want to be and ultimately teaching, like you said, right? And something interesting, when you were first talking about, jumping from different classes, how you had to kind of do a crash course and learn quick and go into it. And to your point, like when you were talking about how you obviously knew biology, but teaching AP biology was still a little bit of a different experience. Once you take off the learning cap and put on the teaching cap, that's when you actually realize that, I either know this stuff or don't know this stuff. And, here you are with all of that experience doing what you want to be doing. And with all that being said, you work here at Iowa Weight Loss Specialist, right? And we have a bunch of different clinics throughout central Iowa and also northern Iowa. So tell us where you primarily work out of, and then also how can people access you if you aren't at that facility?
Yeah, so I work in the Ames Clinic. So at our clinic, we have 2 nurse practitioners and then myself. And it's a small clinic, right? And so because of that, we're a little limited on space. And so 2 days a week, I'm in clinic and I'm in person, which I love those days. Those are great. It's a good chance to, I think it really depends on the patient, honestly. Sometimes people can just thrive in person, right? And then other times people honestly do better when they are telehealth, which is my other option. I know, my midweek, 3 days a week, I work on telehealth. And so that kind of expands my reach a little bit. I'm definitely able to see a larger variety of patients because I'm both in person and through telehealth. And it's fun because I feel like it's like, and this is something that we were chatting about the other day. It's like a whole other tool, right? Like I get to make that decision. Do you do better when you are face to face with me, or are you someone who does better when you get to be in your own space and you get to be a little more comfortable that way, where you share more? And sometimes that changes over the course of a patient and provider relationship. So yeah, it's in that kind of more that northern region here in central Iowa.
Yeah. And that's the true version of hybrid, right? Is that, you see patients in person, like you said, or telehealth, and you can go back and forth based on that patient or your discretion, right? We were talking about, when you were saying that the other day, how you thought that this specific patient would actually maybe do better in person, or you would even feel better if that person or the patient came in. And that flexibility or the opportunity to have that flexibility, I think, is a fantastic tool.
I think it's kind of cool. It's not something that you think about, right? It's not something that you think about as a tool until all of a sudden it becomes one. And so I think that's one of the best parts about health and wellness in today, right? Some people love going to the gym. Other people want to work out and are excited about it, but they really would rather do it in their own house.
Mm-hmm.
And some people love to run outside. Some people want to run on a treadmill. Some people want to ride a bike out on the roads. Others want to ride the stationary bike, right? Like all of these different options that exist now that allow you to kind of find the form of health and wellness that excites you the most, because that's the most important piece, is that you're excited about what you're doing. I had a patient ask me the other day if they should start walking more. Or do I need to walk more, was the question. And my answer was yes. I said, ideally, you're doing things that you enjoy outside or wherever, active every day, every single day, because that's the kind of lifestyle we want you to work towards, and that I want you to want to work towards. Now, is it essential that we push ourselves to that immediately? No, of course not. I want you to do the things that we want to accomplish goals. I want to build new habits and work towards that. That might still be 20 years away. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's no timeline on this stuff. Just know that ideally, I do want you to walk more. Right? And so I think that's one of the cool parts about some of the different modalities that we have available to us now, that doesn't get used often enough, I think, in a health and wellness setting, and especially someone who's providing that care or providing those opportunities to people is like, hey, do you like riding your bike on the streets, or would you prefer riding your bike in your exercise room at home?
Yeah.
Right? Those are very different experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you have to, be willing as a dietitian or as a personal. So I don't train people specifically. I have that certification. I think for me, it's really helpful to keep up on that literature and stay certified, stay up to date on that, because it helps me in my practice. But if I were using that, having that conversation, where do you like working out? Do you want to do it in the gym? Do you want to do it with, in person with me? Would you rather be at home? Like all these different places, just to make it reduce the barriers for people.
Yeah. From the perspective, or health professional perspective, when you talk about reducing the barriers, right? I wonder if sometimes a barrier is getting to that place where you do feel comfortable. And an example in my mind would be trying to get to a gym because you actually feel more comfortable in a gym, but you do realize that's a barrier because of time or because of what have you, right? So how do you go about working with a patient that has that sort of situation?
Yeah, I think you treat it a lot like you would treat eating vegetables. Right?
Tell me more.
So somebody might not like broccoli. They might hate broccoli, right? But can we try it again? Can we try it one more time this week? Let's just have it one time. Or maybe let's just say vegetables in general. We know veggies are good for us, so I'm just going to say they don't like them all. None of them.
Mm-hmm.
None of them are good. So let's pick one, and let's do it once a week. Or let's do it every other week, right? That's the same thing I would say about the gym, right? Maybe we know it's good for us, and you know that that's your preferred way to get your exercise in, but the time is just, okay, fine. Do it once a week. And then the rest of the time, we can try and work out at home. We can do other things. Yeah, I get it. You don't love that. Shorten those up, make them 20 minutes. But can you find one day a week that you can go to the gym and do it the way you want to do it? Or maybe it's once every other week, right? I think there's so much power in consistency. And someone who works out in their preferred method, let's use the gym for example. Let's say you get there twice a month, okay? Yeah, if I say twice a month, that's not a ton. But what if I said every year for the past 10 years, that person has gone to the gym twice a month? Oh, well, that person goes to the gym. They're going to know your face when you walk in. You're going to know which locker doesn't open. You're going to know which pieces of equipment are new, right? I think it's that sense of familiarity that creates our identity. And so these changes that we're trying to make in our lives is so much about flipping what your identity is. And if you identify as someone who goes to the gym and works out, boom, that's what we're looking for. I do that. And then all of a sudden, you sign up for another race. It becomes a priority. You're able to find one more day. And then instead of once every 2 weeks, now we're going 3 times, 4 times every 2 weeks. And it just starts to stack on itself because it became part of your identity. It became who you were. So I think that's kind of, I don't remember the exact question, but I think that's kind of where.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think that's a fantastic way to go about it. And I also think a lot of times it's good to have examples outside of, what the specific question was, right? So the fact that you can put on your CPT hat and switch it to your dietitian hat, but then also, cross it over is a great way to get around across the patients. And that just comes with the teaching thing. Like you learn how to, teach the patients in the manner that they're going to ideally listen to you better. And that comes with that relationship part. So in your practice today, as a registered dietitian, when it comes to weight loss and all the things that kind of go in that, when we talk about physical activity, we talk about your diet, we talk about your mental and emotional well-being, specifically focusing on activity and nutrition. When it comes to weight loss, how would you counsel a patient as to what physical activity is doing for them and what nutrition is doing for them and how they work together?
Yeah. So I think that to me, it starts with, and again, we check out one of our previous podcasts, sleep. We want to make sure we're getting enough sleep every day because that kind of forms the foundation for our energy systems for sure. But nutrition is where we spend most of our time because, first of all, as a dietitian, that's what people come to talk to me about. So that's kind of where we spend most of our time. But the nutrition fuels the exercise. And I think that, to me, like, when you try and put improper fuel in your body, right? And when we say improper fuel, that means probably not enough protein foods, not enough fiber-containing foods, and, that's kind of the long and short of it, to be honest with you. Then we are ending up feeling sluggish. You're not as motivated. And then we can't go exercise. Something I've been kind of like thinking about lately, and I've been saying, working with some of my patients on this specific thing, is if we could put somebody in a lab and control every variable, right? Obviously, we can't do that. It's not, even if we had an actual person in a lab, and still can't control every variable because genetics. But if we could put them in a lab, control every single variable to a T, it would become calories in, calories out to control your weight, right? Now, that's not real life. That's not how it works in the world. All these other things come into play, right? Your body is searching for equilibrium, right? That's part of the challenge is, we reduce your calories, cool, but all of these your body was stressed about this, and this was going on. We didn't get enough sleep, and also you're just genetically predisposed to break down muscle first. I don't know, right? Like it all comes together. Now it's hard for us to lose weight, and your body's metabolism just drops a little bit to compensate for that really reduced nutrition.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's where we start there with the nutrition, because if we can start to figure that out, where it's like, all right, hey, I'm eating these foods that make me feel good, and I'm putting fuel in my body. I feel a little more awake, just on all the time. When I wake up, oh, okay, yeah, that's good. That joint pain that I had and that little achy elbow that was going on, that's gone. Okay, interesting. All right, that feels better. I'm sitting up taller. One of the things it's kind of funny, I can tell exactly how well I've been doing with my habits through exercise, sleep, my nutrition, my water, how am I managing my stress, all of those things. I can tell how well it's gone by what I can see in my rearview mirror, because I'm sitting up taller, right? If I'm sitting up taller, that's where my mirror is at when I get in the car, I'm like, oh, wow. Or I might have to adjust it. So I'm like, well, look at that. Hey, today's better than yesterday. All right. Or I'll get in the car and go, man, oh, gotta adjust my mirror. Must be not doing a great job with my habits. And I can feel it, right? I didn't get enough sleep last night. Boom. Got enough sleep, drank enough water. I get in the car and I'm feeling good. And so it's like, that's one of my measures.
Yeah.
And all that does is tell me is like, hey, right? Just drink more water today. See if you can't make it a little bit better. That's all. But I feel like it's that nutrition thing that if we can get you feeling a little bit better, sitting a little taller, having that mirror adjusted just a little bit higher because you're feeling good, now maybe you have the motivation to go for a walk or try and lift some weights today, or you know what, that project, that yard work that you've been putting off for, a week and a half already, let's go get it done. Yeah. What a great way to have some activity, right? Lift some bags of mulch, put them in your flower beds, all that stuff. And so I feel like and then we just want to start stacking those days where I'm sitting tall in my car because I feel good. So I think it's the nutrition to start, and then we build on that from there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's wonderfully said. As a dietitian, what would you say is the best diet for weight loss?
Oh, there's no really no one specific. I would say it's the diet that can be sustained. I think that is one of the first things that we always end up talking about when I meet with a new patient, right? It's super often that I hear, well, I've just started eating a lot of chicken, or I've just started eating a lot of this. It's like, okay, do you like that? Well, it's okay. Okay, what foods do you like? Right? And because it's so easy to forget that all of these foods are foods, man. Like, it's not like just because it's been like put in a box with non-health. Like, I'm gonna use white rice for my example. Mm-hmm. Okay, just because white rice has been put in this box that says, oh, it's just too high in carbohydrates. Too high in carbohydrates. Well, yeah, if you eat 3 cups of it, sure. 4 cups, yeah, absolutely. Big bowl of rice with a few pieces of chicken or pork, yeah, that might be a lot, sure. But what if we go 1 cup and put like, I don't know, I'm thinking like snow peas and some of our favorite, like let's do some zucchini. That sounds good right now. And then a bunch of pineapple, and then 6 ounces of tasty marinated chicken breast. Well, that's a pretty well-rounded meal there, folks, right? It's got some fiber coming from those greens. You've got a lot of like, there's vitamin C coming from our pineapple, more fiber from the pineapple, lots of protein from our chicken, and all of a sudden that meal fits, right? And so I think there's no one specific meal plan because it's got to be how you eat. Now, is there a ton of room for like a bunch of candy and soda? No, of course not. That's a lot of sugar, right? And if we're just eating sugar without really anything else, that's going to be a challenge. It's going to cause us to crave more sugar, and we've discussed that kind of that cycle,
sure,
on previous podcasts. But yeah, I promise that your diet is a lot closer than you think. It just takes a little intentionality of which foods are we actually choosing. Are we trying like a whole wheat pasta versus a white pasta? Are you choosing more fruits and vegetables than we are white bread, right? Not to say that those foods can't be part of your meal. We just made a meal with white rice. We just did it.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody's different, so you have to eat the way that you can, that is sustainable for you, and that's where I think I find I have the most fun helping people realize that, oh, I can eat the foods I love, and it's really not that big of a deal. We're going to eat just a little bit less, and we're going to focus on these specific ingredients. Okay, I can do that. That's simple. That's easy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I was trying to bait you there, but I guess you aren't going to let me do that. So
No way, man.
I think sustainability is a big, important topic to talk with patients about, and clearly you do that in a really in-depth and well-mannered way. Building off of that, though, with everything out there, I know you're taking a little sabbatical on social media and everything, but still, there's the new dietary guidelines. There's always new diets that are being talked about, whether it's intuitive eating, whether it's this way that you go about it, or the type like keto, paleo, vegan, vegetarian. What out there is something that kind of really rubs you the wrong way as far as being promoted by either a health influencer or maybe even by just like what's a health topic out there that's kind of bothering you right now?
I feel like I don't know if this is a specific health topic, but I feel like to me it's the all or nothing attitude.
Okay.
Around a lot of different things. And that, like, there's a right way and a wrong way, I think, because everyone is different and unique. And so that's where I think, like, I hear someone talk about intermittent fasting, right? It's like, oh, that's the only way to do it. Maybe it's good for that person. Awesome, right? But that group is smaller than you'd think. They're loud, but smaller. Same thing with, like, let's say a carnivore diet. Loud, but small group that's successful with that. Most aren't. Most see some of those blood markers that we talk about with their cholesterol skyrocket. They go all carnivore. Yeah, those jump way up. And there's, so risk of mortality increases there. Some people are super successful with it, though. And it's great. And it doesn't have that kind of impact on, so, hey, you got to do you. But that's where I feel like, for me, it's like, oh, here, let's try this super specific diet and it's going to fix all our problems. It's like, man, that's not right. And then I also, you know what else actually is, I feel like sometimes it's the super niche desserts.
Okay.
I think that's something that's like, man, what?
Define niche. What type of desserts talking about?
Like, we're mixing together coconut oil and this item that you can only find in specific grocery stores, and then we're freezing it and then dipping it in chocolate that's only a little bit chocolate, and it's mostly this other thing, and it's like, man, what? Like, that is hard to make. And I get it. It might taste good. And sure, it might be something that you decide is going to help fuel your body. Cool. But I think it's one of those things that's like, okay, but what's wrong with regular chocolate for having a little bit of it? Nothing. Nothing, man. Nothing wrong with it. Maybe we have it with a couple slices of banana. What's wrong with a banana? Nothing, man. Right? And so I think it's just finding that moderation in things. And if we can fill your bucket with good foods, with those foundational foods, right? Vegetables, fruits, whole grains. There's no tricks. It's not a trick. It's consistent fueling of your body. And the sooner you can figure that part out for yourself, it's like, how do I get myself to choose oats, brown rice, whole wheat pasta, whole grain breads, green vegetables, variety of fruits. If you can start doing that every day, plus finding your source of protein, whether that be plant-based or animal product-based, you do your thing. Like, now we can know. Right? If you're doing that stuff every single day, and you still don't feel good, all right, now we can explore. But we got to do that first, man, because that's foundation. And I'm not saying that's easy to get to if we haven't been eating that way for a long time. And that's a big hurdle and challenge in and of itself. But we got to start there.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there we can say, all right, maybe it's this specialty item, or maybe it's this specific food that makes you feel better. Okay, cool. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's room for that. But not once we have foundations first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is definitely a topic for another time, but when you talk about what you've been doing in the past versus what you want to be doing or what they want to transition into, you know, or what maybe looks better on your plate, I mean, the habits that you've built up until the point of coming in to see you is probably much harder to completely change versus, you know, the slight change that you're talking about. So, again, I think it's a really great way to go about it. I think the last question I have for you, actually, I have two questions. So we'll start with this one. Next question is going to be, what is the best source of protein? Because when you're talking about your foundation and everything, and you talked a quality source of protein, I was going to hammer you with something more specific, but I think let's just talk about that protein. Like, what is a good source of protein?
So good sources of protein, we're looking at animal products, right? And I think it's important to point out, I use chicken as my example for a lean meat. Chicken breast, I should say. Chicken breast. Because there's very little fat in there. It's basically protein, and that's it. Which is why it's so popular when it comes to, hey, I'm going to start eating healthy. Let's eat chicken. But the difference between, and we're just talking protein here, just talking protein content. The difference between 4 ounces of chicken breast and 4 ounces of ribeye is simply fat content, right? Those proteins, they're both protein, right? And so we might choose chicken breast over a ribeye if we struggle to achieve any kind of protein intake, right? If that's something that you're like, hey, I need every little bit I can get because that's something that's really hard for me. All right, chicken, 4 ounces of chicken over 4 ounces of steak, probably, right? Or if we're thinking about we want to make sure our saturated fat is a little bit lower. All right, we're probably choosing chicken breast over that steak, right? Now, maybe we go with a sirloin. That's got lower fat content, much closer to that ratio that we were looking at with chicken. So, from a meat perspective, you just have to remember, there's no the inherent quality of protein in different meats is really not all that different. It's just simply the fat content, and you have to take a look at that. Now, there's maybe a little bit more to red meat that we're looking at with some different amino acids and how some of those can interact with whatever. But, again, moderation. I think just practice in moderation. But then there's also plant-based proteins, right? So I look at a bean. Beans are high-quality protein. It's a great source of protein. Why can't we use that? Let's use that if that's something that you feel like makes you feel good. Especially, think about a bean. It's got extra fiber in it too. We're looking at carbohydrates. We're looking at a little bit of fat and then protein. And you've got all that extra fiber in there. It's like nature's package, right? Boom. Eat that. You're good to go. And so that's a great source. Some of the, if we think about tofu or tempeh, those are just from soybeans, right? That's what they are. Tofu is going to be just your protein. Tempeh is going to be that whole bean. And so those can be fun sources to experiment with and try, right? Yeah. So best protein source, it just comes down to knowing what's going in your body.
Well said. All right, last question I have for you, Derek. We always end up talking about food, I feel like, on these podcasts. So you talked a little bit about the extravagant desserts that kind of bother you a little bit that you see out there, and making it too, maybe unrealistic for the average person. So what is we already talked about your favorite dish in the past. What's kind of just your guilty pleasure? And if there is a dessert that you regularly reach for, what is that too?
I wouldn't say I have a dessert that I regularly turn to.
Okay.
I do like desserts, but it's not something that I'm choosing consistently. Man, guilty pleasure. I love mac and cheese. I love mac and cheese. It's not often that I like. I used to say I'm on the quest to find to make the perfect or the best homemade mac and cheese. I would not say I have pursued that lately. I love Goodles. It's my favorite. A little bit higher protein, a little bit higher fiber in that product, which is super fun.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's been a really awesome find for me because it helps me just feel better after I eat that food.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Whereas if I were having a not high protein, high fiber version of mac and cheese, it always tasted good, but it always made me feel super sluggish, right? That was always a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say mac and cheese is probably one of them, and then I'm a sucker for a Guinness, so that's where I tend to grab the occasional Guinness. But.
Nice. Is there anything else that I hadn't touched on that maybe you want to let the listener know, or at least came to mind that again I just didn't touch on? That you want to let them know?
I mean, I think no, I feel like we covered most of kind of what I think about when I'm meeting with somebody, but I think the overall goal that I have, right? Because I want to help someone set their own goals, right? That's very, very important, right? But when someone walks in, I do have a goal. When somebody walks in to meet with me, right? And my goal is always to help that person feel better, right? At my core, I do not care what you weigh. That might be something that you're interested in, and if that's one of your goals, then boom, let's crush it, right? I care about how you feel. And I can feel it too. When people come back and they've been doing the things that we talked about, I can feel it, right? There's energy, there's positivity there, and then you're like, oh wow. And sometimes those conversations, it's amazing. It's like a whole new person walks in the room. It's unbelievable. It's like, what's different? Well, I'm trying to eat breakfast every day. Whoa. Right? And then they, we start talking about it, and they go on and they're like, well, once I started eating breakfast every day, then I felt like it was easier for me to choose my protein shake at lunch to go with my lunch that we talked about. And then I'm like, okay, so what have your dinners been like? Well, it's been good. I haven't been feeling the same kind of hunger in the, and I've my serving sizes, my portion sizes have gotten a little smaller. I'm not snacking in the evenings anymore, right? And a lot of those things, yeah, we mention them,
Mm-hmm.
but usually it's just like, all right, hey, let's start simple. And it just snowballs, and they've got now, and you can just tell that they feel way better. So that's I do have an agenda when you walk in my office or in my room to meet with me, and that's just to help you feel as good as we possibly can make you feel.
With all that being said, Derek, this has been a pleasure, my man.
Yeah, thanks.
One thing that hopefully the listeners, if they made it to this point, and I'm sure they will with the way that you talk, is they understand that, like, if you're looking for a dietitian, you're the dietitian to get in front of. The way that you go about it, and like I mentioned earlier, the charisma that you have, and just the way that you speak to others, and find the way that again that they will listen to, it's just it goes to the point of your creativity, and it's beautifully done. So thank you for this. I think this is going to be a great episode.
And I will say one last thing. I think too. I should say I have encountered patients that we don't connect, right? That does happen. And so I think that, because I want to bring up the rest of our, we have other dietitians who are awesome. And so because it literally has happened where I was like, okay, hey, you know what? This doesn't happen a ton, but it does, right? And so, and then there are, if we're talking about different things, like maybe, I don't know, eating disorders, things like that, that's probably not going to be specifically me. But we do have team members who could get you started, right? And so I just want to make sure that gets pointed out, because I feel so empowered to provide the kind of discussions and build the kind of relationships that I get to build because of who I work with. It's very empowering to work here and know that that's what the team is going to do. So just want to say
That's awesome. Thank you for your time, sir.